Welcome everyone to another episode of Dynamics Corner, where we dive deep into all things Microsoft Dynamics. Whether you're a Dynamics veteran or a newcomer, we'll dive into the Business Central ideas and Christmas wish list. I'm your co-host, Chris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on December 15th, 2023. Chris, what happened to you, man? You just sounded like you were running that without any steam.
Oh, did I sound like that? Oh, man.
You sounded like, I don't even know. It was a little lagged and delayed. Are you okay?
I had to keep it short. I wanted to give that short because this episode was like a list of awesome ideas, and I'm like, my mind is thinking, right? And so that's why I'm like, wait, hold on, there's other things. It
truly was another amazing episode because we had the opportunity to talk about a lot of things, even more importantly, what I would like for Christmas from the Microsoft, the Business Central community.
Santa Microsoft,
things that I would like to see within the Business Central application, along with our guests and what they would like to see, as well as you too. You had a little more energy during the conversation than you just had, and I think it's great. But with us today, we have the opportunity to speak with Ben Cole from ERP Connect.
Try again. Just keep talking. I'm just gonna keep clicking buttons.
Welcome to another episode of I've never done the intro, Chris.
3.
We should swap it up one day.
We should.
Maybe today we will. I'll swap the intro.
Brad.
You should. Let's do it.
Or
we'll do another one next week of just the two of us at the year and the recap, and I'll do the intro.
All right, sounds good. That works too.
Oh, I think I made some progress. All right.
That's working.
Say something. Yeah, can you guys still hear me?
Yep,
I can hear you.
Damn technology.
It amazes me every single time that we do this stuff every day, all day, several meetings, and we always still have audio issues.
Oh, yeah.
It's never with the podcast, though, but just meetings in general.
Yep.
And the old... muted. I'm sorry, I was muted.
Yeah.
Or you're muted. Now you're muted.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for the holidays because everyone, it's like, oh, you're in technology. It's like, hey, can you set up my Bluetooth in my car? I'm like, I do not. I mean, I can, but like that's not what I do for a living.
But
that's one of those things. Is like it's when people say, "Oh, you work in IT, you can do this," but everybody thinks like just because you work in IT that you know everything, and they don't realize that there's several different, what I call lanes, or seven different technologies that people can learn. So just because you work in IT, like you said, doesn't mean that my computer's not working. Can you fix it?
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. Go call somebody.
Yeah, I'm not a hardware guy.
And the other thing, you talk about, we say, if I had a nickel for every time I heard somebody say, "Oh, you muted," to somebody on a call, I'd be a millionaire. The other one is, could you repeat that? You broke up.
Yeah.
And everybody knows what that means, right?
I
wasn't paying attention.
I saw a guy on, I think it was like CNBC or like one of the, stock shows, something talking about business. And the guy was talking about a stock that he thought was going to like rally and be like really hot. And then the guy was like, he's like, I mean, yeah, like so what does the company do? And the guy was like, sorry, what was that? It's like, what does the company do? He's like, I'm sorry, my audio, like the guy had no clue what the company did, but he was recommending their stock, and then he acted like his stuff wasn't working and then just hung up on CNBC. Like,
That sounds like that movie. What's that? Dick and Jane.
Oh yeah.
When he was interviewed.
Yeah.
What was that? Who was in that movie? I don't recall.
It was Jim Carrey and
Jim Carrey.
Tia Leone or something like that.
Oh,
it's
I see a lot of these movies or shows and I forget about them. You know, some people recite these lines and like, oh, did you see that in that movie? I'm like, yes, I watched the movie, but I don't remember the line. And sometimes I can't even remember what the movie's about. That's why last year I started keeping a log of all the movies I watch and all the movies, television
The
series,
quotes
and books that I read. The quotes I have down.
Yeah.
Because in my OneNote. But
like Talladega Nights or something like that. There's a lot of quotable components of that movie.
I started keeping a notebook of just any like podcasts or books or even movies. If you hear something good, just of any quotes and who said them. And because I'm always like, oh yeah, I have this good quote, and then I'm like, who said that? I have no idea. And then it's like it's just so much less reputable. It's like I think you just made that up, Ben. Nobody ever said that.
I keep track of the quotes. So which podcast do you cite the most? Ben,
I'm trying to think.
Ben, you failed.
I failed.
You should have said this one.
This one.
See. Oh, you let us down. I
was gonna say Alex Hormozy, probably, if you listen to him.
I do not listen to him. I listen to several podcasts.
What's the title of his podcast?
I don't even know. But
excuse me, you're breaking up. Chris,
exactly. You're breaking up.
I have to reconnect. Excuse me.
Basically, he's just some, serial entrepreneur. It's called The Game with Alex Hormozy. He's just a big, he's founded like a million different businesses and just like talks about everything that goes on with startup. I mean, it's good for startups and anybody growing their own business and things like that, because that's pretty much all he talks about, just like being an entrepreneur, founder, that kind of stuff. So
I'll have to put that on my list to listen to a couple.
And it's called The Game because he kind of talks about how business is a game, right? These are the things you have to do to succeed, and these are the opponents that you're going to face and that kind of thing. So that's kind of how he structures it, which is kind of fun.
Gotcha.
That's good. I'll put that on my list. Well, Ben, we had a couple minutes, but thank you for taking the time to speak with us again during this holiday season. I know that you're busy. Everyone's busy this time of year, but we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. For anybody who might not have heard your last episode or know of you, would you be able to please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Ben Cole. I'm the founder over at ERP Connect. We are a Business Central, Dynamics 365 Business Central ISV. So kind of what our bread and butter is and what we're trying to do is make the user experience easier for Business Central users through a slew of 28 tools that we kind of group up and lump together and call the Business Central Toolbox. So I've been doing this with ERP Connect for about 3 years now. And prior to that, just worked at a couple other companies doing Business Central consulting. So that's a little bit about me and kind of where my experience and background will pull from for today's questions and discussions.
Excellent. Well, I'm happy to speak with you again. And I see a lot of great things you're doing with ERP Connect and your Business Central Toolbox, starting to see it pop up at a number of different places. And I think not to put it a certain way, that may sound bad, but sometimes the small and simple things are great in the sweet spot because they're simple and easy to use. And there's not a lot of difficulties. We can all build the space shuttle, but sometimes it takes a little bit to get that going. But when you have a suite of tools that you can easily use, right, without a lot of need to understand, a lot of technical setup, it's a lot easier, and you can be a little bit more productive and efficient right away versus having to take some time to realize the efficiency. So I'm happy to see that you have a toolbox available for everybody to make the software use much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the big things I've seen lately is just everybody wants everything done super quickly and super efficiently, right? And a lot of times, these ERP implementations can be over 1,000 hours. So, it's kind of just a breath of fresh air sometimes when I'm talking to somebody and they're like, okay, well, how long is this going to take? I'm like, like an hour or two. And they're like, wait, really? So, everybody wants the easy button. Everybody wants it done fast. I'll disclaim that not everything can be done fast and easy, right? But there are certain things that we've done that can be, and we've accomplished those. So yeah, you're spot on there.
No, I understand. It is. Everybody seems to want everything yesterday.
Oh yeah.
And it's, I could tell you some stories about that. Like, well, it's, I had a conversation with someone earlier. It was, like, it's 10 o'clock and I need this by 11. I'm like, what? Like, I haven't talked to you all week long, and now you're telling me at 10 o'clock you need something at 11, and it's the equivalent of saying, can you build me a house? I want to move in tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sometimes things take time, so it's kind of interesting. So have you worked with, I think we haven't spoken to you because we spoke to you this past during the summer, 2023 Wave 2. Have you worked with that quite a bit?
I wouldn't say quite a bit, just since it's kind of slowly rolling out for our clients, right? But enough to speak on it. But seeing a lot of cool things. Just love to see everything Microsoft's doing in terms of the investment that they're making in Business Central. Like I said, I started working on BC in 2017 when they first went cloud. So if you take a snapshot of it then and now, it's like just night and day, right? But it's nice to see the incremental things. You know, you don't notice them as they go, but when you look back 5, 6, 7 years as to how far it's progressed, it's just incredible, right? Like all the things that they're adding, and I hope that they keep going at that pace, if not faster, right? Just keep adding new stuff and investing in the tool. So
faster.
Faster's always, like we talked about, right? Faster's always better.
Faster's always better, but
it's hard to keep up.
It's hard to keep. I think it's twofold. I think it's hard to keep up, and sometimes if you try to release things, if you followed some of the discussions that have had with some of the recent updates on some of the groups, is it too fast? Right?
I should clarify. Faster, that works, right? It has to work, right? Fast isn't always better if it doesn't work, but getting stuff done the right way, the faster the better, right?
And you mentioned you hope it keeps at the same pace. I'm sorry, you might have sent me down a rabbit hole, because this is something I'm stuck on right now, and I have asked several guests or mentioned it during several episodes with guests. Is there a point where there's too much? And what I mean by that is each wave, each month, they roll out new features and functionality. A lot of them are needed. I'm not going to say that they're not. And then they also now have the open source contribution to it as well, where members of the community can add to it. Is there a point to where you can add too much to the application to make it too complicated to use, or to where you keep adding these features, make it simpler to use, that nobody utilizes those features? And what I mean by, if you take a look at QuickBooks or what happened with QuickBooks, you look at some of these other applications, even if you wanted to stay within the Microsoft suite, you take a look at Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, they have all of these features built into these applications, and nobody uses most of them. They only use a small portion of it. And then also with the other part of that question that I was getting at is, now you add all this feature and functionality suite or set to Business Central. If somebody wants to explore into it, outside of now using the basics, saying, okay, it comes in, I add a customer, do a sales order, print a check, pay a vendor, I'm done, that it becomes too complicated to set up. One of the things that gets to me is there's a setup for everything. Why not have one setup page with tabs like they have in Office, where you can say like the general, the accessibility, your sound, your input, your output, where you have to go all over the place. Now, if you go to it, you have the inventory setup, you have the sales and receivable setup. So you got me on a tangent.
Oh, no, I love it.
Payable setup,
because
general ledger setup.
We face the same thing just building out ours, right? Like everybody comes with their 2 cents of, hey, this, that, and the other could be added in. And that's probably the hardest part, picking what do we want to add in and what is overcomplicating it for a small portion of folks, right? So I think that's the discussion that, we're talking about internally. I'm sure Microsoft is talking about as well. And I think when I talk about making the product better, I think what I like to see is focusing on making it more user friendly, right? So not necessarily adding in and making Business Central F&O, right? That's not where I'm headed, or that's not my goal in terms of like what I'm looking to get out of either what we build or what I'm hoping Microsoft adds as well, right? Because of course, a lot of the stuff Microsoft doesn't add is opportunity for us, right? Full transparency, right? Like a lot of things that they're missing, we've capitalized on to build, and clients love it, right? So it's really seeing more of that, right? More ease of use for users is my biggest thing, not overly complicated features and setups. I don't like extra setups either, because then people just get more confused, right? And then that means more consulting hours, which are already slim, right? The consultants are already stretched thin. everywhere that I talk to. At least if you know a company that has a lot of people on the bench, let me know, because we'd love to talk to them. But yeah, I think, resources are thin, so just overcomplicating things definitely isn't good. But I look at like the Analyze tool from the new version that just came out, right? And I feel like that's something people have wanted for a long time, where it's like, I want to be able to slice and dice my data at a lower level in the interface. And the answer was always, well, you have to go outside the system, right? You got to go to Power BI, you got to go to these other tools to do that. And they're like, well, I don't know Power BI, right? And then it's like, well, we can do it for you. And that's not always, it's a good answer, but it's not always the best answer, right? Because at the end of the day, the clients want to be self-sufficient for the most part. So I think that, things like that, where you look at other tools in the past, I know, a lot of people are coming from Dynamics GP. They were used to the smart list builders and all that kind of stuff. And there was nothing like that in BC. This is kind of making it like that. And I know that was all the GP to BC people I talked to, that was like their favorite feature that they were missing, right? Like smart list. So how do I get a smart list type thing in Business Central? It's not apples for apples, but it's, getting there and giving people more tools to do things themselves. I think that's the thesis of this all, right? Give people the tools they need to do things themselves, right? Don't make it overly complicated.
Well, the usability tools, I agree. The analysis view, which came out this past year, and I know that they're going to continue to improve on it. It's a great tool. I was getting more to functional options and setups and features, because some of the areas of the software, again, I separate from usability and functionality. Usability, to make it easier, I'm a fan of. Feature set, adding all these options, switches, and I use the word switches. Is there a point where it gets too complicated, too much, to now I have to, jump off? I do like the way that they separated, you have the essentials and you have the premium version. So at least, you enable the premium version, you now have service available for use in manufacturing. Yeah, shut it off, you don't even see those features or that function. Which is, to me, it's nice because it kind of scales it back. Not to say that they don't have it, but then it kind of eliminates some complexity.
I do find the challenges, though, when things are coming out, new features are coming out so fast, and you have these consultants, consultants already pretty much stretched thin. And at the same time, with these new features, they have to try to keep up. Because in many cases, when you have new opportunities that comes in front of you, they're going to bring up something, and a consultant may not even be aware of that. And I think that's where the challenge, is presented with a lot of partners. It's like, oh, I didn't even know about that. And so you're going to go research and have to learn it and then come back to the client. And I think that's where I find even some of the seasoned consultants I've worked with, where, hey, did you know about this? It's like, oh, I didn't know about that. And maybe they're in the middle of the project, and that would have been helpful for them during their project.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's definitely one of the big things I keep hearing, right, from people. It's like, even with one of our tools that we added some updates to, right, we added a few more buttons, and people are like, oh, what are these? So you have to make sure you're communicating.
Which tool are we referencing? Put it out there, Ben. Put it out there.
For us, it was our advanced prepayments tool. So we gave some more optionality about doing prepayments at the customer level versus the sales order level, and then same on the purchasing side, and kind of gave a selection of what do you want to default, right? Do you want to default at the customer level? Do you want to default at the sales order? Whereas before, it was just all at the sales order level, and then if you want to do customers, you could do customers. And you're like, oh, well, what's this extra button? And functionally, it didn't really change anything. It was more of a safeguard to not allow people to make the mistake of, trying to do it on a sales order and then going and also putting a prepayment at a customer level, right? But for the first client that called me, it confused people, and then we added it to the documentation, made an announcement, stuff like that. So for us, it's easy because we have less clients. For Microsoft, how do you communicate that to 30,000 plus companies and get them all to actually read the email that you send them, right? I think that's the difficult part with the already busy schedules that everyone already has, consultants and end clients, right? I feel like a lot of time it is nobody has time to read that kind of stuff. So the next piece is, how do you make it as easily consumable as possible? And I think, again, we'll split that into two swim lanes: usability, ease of use, kind of updates like that. I think, again, the faster the better there, because we always want it to be easier. The other side, features, functions, buttons, pages, things like that, like Brad said, you do have to be careful because you don't want to overwhelm people. and you don't want to change something that breaks something else if they don't update it, right? Like if it's just a button that's a nice to have, it's like, okay, if I ignore it, it's not really affecting anything. If it's broke, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type mentality. Whereas if it is truly a new change that you now have to take into every, consideration every time you implement Business Central or when you update it, then yeah, that could cause a ton of problems, right? And then who gets stuck with it? Well, Microsoft's not answering that call. That's all the partners answering the call, and it just makes everybody else more thin, right?
Yeah.
It is. That's one of the things. If you look at the list that's coming out, and sorry, Chris, I didn't mean to jump on you. You do. How do you get that out to the masses? How do you get it out? And it's not only that, because you have businesses that use the application. So these features come out. How do you consume the use of those applications? Because somebody who's managing the system versus somebody who's using the system, as you talk about, also now you have the partner network who work with these implementations. It's not so easy to keep up with it because the list of the features that are coming out are also a little bit lagging. Like we have the major wave releases, which has some functionality which you get access to. If you have the insider build, you can experiment with, but it's still not the final release. Then the preview release comes out a month before, which also the preview release isn't guaranteed to be the actual release, based on what happens with testing or even changes to make through it. So there's not a lot of time to work with and possibly use these features, as they're rolling out so quickly.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. It's almost like you almost need a dedicated person in your organization that keeps track of those things, that is maybe part of your bread and butter, or maybe part of your customers or industry specific customers that you deal with often, and find a way to kind of relay those new features not only to your internal consultants, because they're they're busy enough, but at the same time your customers that maybe heads down, working in their business, and maybe they're dealing with maybe they're doing something, that a new feature that came out that could help them. It's almost you have to set schedules of webinars and training with your clients on top of trying to catch up with Microsoft. So it's I think it's a balancing act here that needs to happen. And I think that's going to continue in the coming future.
Yeah. And it's definitely tough. And I think like the things I usually get the most excited about are when you're taking something that is already there and just making it better without a lot of additional, with ideally no additional setups or no really changes, right? Just making things faster, better, stronger under the current framework, right? I know a big issue for high volume clients, right, is that a lot of the things are slower, right? Like, what if you could take configuration packages for data loads and just make them 10 times faster, right? No differences, just make it faster, right? Like things like that.
Right.
I don't have the answer to that. If I did, I would have already solved it, but
well, you'll have it by Monday, and you'll have a new feature set for your BC toolbox.
Well, we did create a data import thing that just skips over the config package and does a XML port import, but then clients are still like, well, I want to do it through the config package. I'm like, well, if you want it to be fast, it can't be through the config pack.
Well, the configuration packages work well for a couple of records, but if you try to do anything of volume, then you get a lot of coffee drinking time. We are in the holiday season, so there's two things from this conversation so far that I would like for Christmas from Microsoft. One is a panel of all the setups across all of the areas. I'd like a panel, even if it were tabs, a page. See, this could be something that, Ben, if you add this to the BC toolbox, just make sure you put Brad's
your
idea
name on it.
where we have all of the setups on one page, and even in separate tabs, as I had mentioned, where you have inventory setup, purchase and payable setup, sales and receivables setup, general ledger setup, all of the setup tables, because there are so many setup tables you don't even think about it. But at least if it's all in one place, it would be nice. That is something I would like to see. The other thing that I would like to see is a lot of these feature sets that they have. I would like it to go the same way as they're doing with the delocalization. Right. So with the delocalization, have one central application. Now you have separate extensions or apps that you can add to your feature. They're there. They're not on by default, but you can turn them on or turn them off so that the application doesn't appear to be so busy. Yeah. So they're doing a lot with the application. This is different than the feature set, right? Even if you wanted to do it with the feature set, which had something similar where you could turn things on and off to decrease the complexity, because my fear is it's going to get too busy, right? It's just becomes, yes, you can do personalization. Yes, you can do a lot of these things. Like these are the competing views to say that we already have options to do some of these things, but it still requires me to do a lot more. So those are my two wishes for Christmas. Chris, we'll have to remember that so I can write this down.
No, I like that. I like that, in a single location. The other one I have is the most common questions I get all the time is,
Chris, I didn't ask you yet what you wanted for Christmas.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you anyway.
Then why don't you say, yes, Brad, those are two great ideas. Yes. What I would like for Christmas from Microsoft is...
Okay, so this is one of the things that we get asked all the time.
Think about it.
Is the fact that when we're working with clients, they're always asked, am I utilizing my Business Central to the full extent? It'll be really good to have some view of which areas that you're utilizing and which ones you're not. Kind of gamify it. Maybe a percentage, you're doing 60% in the sales side, or maybe you're only doing 40% of utilization of finance side. And that way you have a visibility. Okay, maybe I'm missing some stuff here that maybe it'll be helpful for me. That gets asked all the time. So what happens is that you got to go back and understand how they're using it. And it's like, oh, okay, well, you should look into this area because I see you're not using it. That would be very cool. I think it's going to allow customers to identify areas of Business Central that maybe they're not looking into. That's what I would like.
Is that the only thing you would like?
Well, there's a few things.
I have a lot of questions for Ben outside of this, but we've kind of gone down this road here. I'm sorry, Ben, to take away from our conversation.
I like it.
We'll have you. Go ahead. We'll have you back on again. What's wrong with us today, Chris? You can't edit that out. We're keeping all this stuff in.
Oh, we're keeping it.
We'll have you back on again and again and again, and we'll eventually get to all the conversations we want to have. But just next time, don't shoot me down a different path.
It's all good. I was going to actually piggyback off what Chris said, because I like that idea, and then level it up one more with, it could be twofold, right? Having one side of it be kind of standard configurations, right? Because I feel like the client a lot of times asks, okay, well, how should I configure it? Well, it depends, right? Well, what does it depend on? I don't know. Answer a few more questions and then I'll tell you, right? So to have for a distributor or a manufacturer or just a services company, right? Like this is how a company typically sets it up, right? Because I feel like a lot of people just come in, whatever's turned on, they leave on, whatever's turned off, they leave off, they change some things, and nobody really has a good answer, right? And it would be almost nice to have something to point the clients to say, this is Microsoft Docs. This is what Microsoft says, which is a trusted and reputable source. And then it can maybe build some standardization in, the industry. So it's not, you don't, from a support standpoint, jump into all these different clients and everybody's set up all differently. And then on the flip side, not just the setup for the standardization, but then having some sort of checks to say, these things may conflict, right? Like, if you've got your posting group set up this way versus these other so many, right, Brad, you're talking about setups. I think the posting groups for clients is, for some reason, like the hardest hurdle to get over. I have yet to find a client who I show posting groups to, and they're just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I'll have them for you tomorrow, right? They always call me like 5 times. Okay, well, I set it up. I still don't know if it's right, especially combining the general product and general business posting group. Usually the customers and vendors and stuff are easy.
I agree with you on that one. I think, and often it's, well, let's just set this up and I'll show you how it posts, or I'll show you how it impacts your general ledger. You hit that right on the, you hit that nail on the head. You bring up a good point, not to the point of, am I utilizing it? Because the concept of utilization is difficult. Just because you're not using something 100% does not mean you're using it effectively. Yeah. So less is more in some sense, right? Because if you're using it efficiently, where I see, you sent me down another road, where I see this going, you came on to a point that I envision this going to, seeing with what they're doing. The introduction to AI to Business Central, right? You talked about the setup. Years and years ago, if you go back, prior to you young children, right? If you go back to the dinosaur days when we first started working with this, right? And young children in the sense of, use of the application. 2017, you're relatively new to it. Doesn't mean you don't know it. Doesn't mean you don't understand it. It's just you may not have worked with the historical versions, where I'm getting at. We had a questionnaire.
Yeah.
When you opened up the application, there was a questionnaire. Very basic, but it would set you up with a template. Where I see this going now is a similar fashion, right? Add all these features, add all this functionality. Chris, we're going to have to bookmark all these. Remember that. I'll just say that during the podcast, right? So start writing these down so that this is where we'll put these out. We need to go back to that questionnaire.
Yes.
But we need the questionnaire with all the features and functionality to have some sort of, for lack of better terms, I'll quote, intelligence behind it, to where you can do what you're saying with the analysis, right, based upon whatever you can train the AI to do, as well as when you go through the questionnaire, have it be some sort of adaptive questionnaire where it's not like, what type of business are you, a wholesaler or distributor or manufacturer? Okay, next, creates a chart of accounts sample for you or something, but takes you through a progressive process of
like
setting up the application
along the way.
Which type of business are you? Do you have foreign entities? Do you have all the questions to go through it, but not in a decision tree. We have to start with the decision tree of a user would go through all the options, but have it be adaptive in the sense that AI can generate the next question based upon the answer to the previous one, and then set up the application. To add that, Ben, thank you. That's Christmas list number 3. And if they add that, we'll have to attribute you for the idea.
I love that. And even after that, right? So now you have my brain spinning of more ideas, right? Like I think of it as the chat GPT, like you just throw this word vomit into chat GPT and you say, clean it up, and like, it'll do it, right? Like if I'm ever typing something and I'm like, this just makes no sense, like, but my ideas are out there. It's like, give it to me in bullet points and chat GPT can do it. So it's almost like that, right? Client just kind of like spits all of their requirements and just puts them in this thing. And then chat GPT or whatever the AI tool is cleans them up and says, okay, I have now formed your thoughts and more logical questions. Are these the questions you were trying to ask or answer, right? And then it's yes or no, and then it asks you more questions, and then I'll go one level deeper, Brad. As you're actually using Business Central, have the sidebar, have a co-pilot on the side. You do something, and it's kind of watching over your shoulder, saying, "You're about to do that wrong." Right? Like, don't do that. Even though it will let you post or to let you do whatever, because I feel like that happens so much that would eliminate a lot of needless support cases, right? Like, oh, I think I posted this wrong or screwed this up or this, that, or the other, right? And it's like, you could have that co-pilot guy or girl behind the scenes being like, it's not really the way you should be doing it, and giving you hints, right? I saw one, it's not even AI, it was just something on the posting groups. Now when you set up a bank account, if that bank account has direct posting turned on, it will tell you, hey, this posting group is, that GL account's turned on. You probably want to turn that off. Do you want to learn more about this? So I think that's a very, very light version of what we could see in the future, right?
Yeah, or it could give you a possible outcome. Like, hey, if you do this, this is what it would do. Here's an example of that. And I think that would be very helpful, because you're right. A lot of the things that we deal with in support cases is that it's a misunderstanding of the process or the setup.
Yeah.
And you have to undo the process and undo the behavior of someone following that process because they misunderstood. But if you can prevent that, or give them a possibility of understanding as they're setting this up, it's super helpful. And I do love the what I want for Christmas, Brad, on the third option, is because, I mean, it's going to be, I think it's going to save a lot of time.
That is number 3. That is
number 3.
Ben, it's between Ben and I. All right, Ben and I. That's a shared version for it.
That one.
Yes, that have some sort of adaptive setup and adaptive use of the application. And seeing what is being done with AI, I don't see how that would be too difficult. again, I'm not an AI expert. I just, everything looks easy, right? Look, it's so easy to fly a rocket to the moon. I mean, how difficult can it be? But I think having something like that to help set up the application along with the centralized setup. And I also had mentioned, that the ability to turn on and off functions. I would be happy to wake up and have those presents.
We're not too far from it now, because there's Copilot, objects, right? So you can continue to expand that.
Well, I think so. I mean, the introduction, they're making a big push. Even 2023 Wave 2 Release 2, I guess you could say Update 2, the Copilot library for developers is there, and I do see a lot more. Hopefully, again, it's not too much. I do see a lot of use for individual companies or individuals that author extensions to develop Copilot-driven extensions that to help with the use of the application.
Ben,
there you go, Ben. Ben, see? Let's do this, Ben. I'll give you the idea.
I'm
already working on it.
I've got so many ideas now.
Did you see that demo they did for the Copilot as they chat through, asked about the client and how to create a sales order?
Yeah.
Where would you see that being helpful for?
Well, hold on, Chris, before we go in there. Ben, did you finish your Christmas list?
Well, I did, but then I thought I was done shopping, and then my, brain got jogged on even more things. So my last thing, which honestly, Chris, might play into this next question you're going to ask, is some sort of support help, right? That searches, there's so much stuff online, right? And I feel like a lot of times too, if you don't know a question, you're Googling it, right? So if somebody sends me an error I've never seen before, what's the first thing you're going to do? You're going to plug it into Google, see if there's a Microsoft doc. What if before the client emails me, they could have the, chat assistant give them the answer?
Do you know who you're talking to, Ben? That's Chris GPT.
Yeah.
Chris GPT is the king of search. So you'll talk to him on the phone and be like, Chris, how do I post an invoice? He is the fastest Googler in the world. With AI, he's like a prompt engineer. He's a prompt engineer. Like, you won't even know.
So I don't want to tell him. I don't want to take Chris's job, but
no, you have Chris's job. He has a quieter keyboard now because of that. Because I'm like, Chris, people can hear you typing.
Well, maybe for Chris, he needs something that just takes the audio and just Googles it for him, so that he always has the answer up on the screen, right? But something like that, right? So I had somebody call me today, and it was, they ran out of number series, or their number series. They went to the last number, and they couldn't post anything, and they're like, "Why don't I have a number here?" And I feel like, an AI bot could very simply be like, well, did you check this? Right? And maybe that's not the answer, but did you check this? Yes or no? Did you check this? Yes or no? Did you, right? Walk them through the common troubleshooting steps that are probably documented somewhere online, that, everybody has to learn something for the first time, right? So, everyone was in that position at some point. Everybody's learning something new every day, and the internet has all of the answers for everything typically. So, and then of course use machine learning to learn from that, and give better answers or questions the first time, or add new stuff to the internet with new answers. Right? There's so many opportunities.
Even better, if you were implementing Business Central, along the way, you would hopefully document your process, right, along the way.
Nobody does that.
I know nobody does that, but everyone should document along the way and make adjustments. And if you collect all of those documents into a single location that holds all your documents, you could use Copilot to look at that knowledge base, so that when a customer asks about a process, it is unique to their business process. It's not looking at the entire internet and make an assumption based on the information that's on the internet. So if you were to create a bunch of documentation of the business process of, for a customer, you could connect Copilot to that. And so whenever they ask, maybe that's why did you turn that setup on? It would tell you why they did that initially, because you have that documented. It's not going to make an assumption by looking to the internet and said, oh, that's usually turned on, not necessarily. But in your case, if you have the knowledge base and it was documented, it'll tell you, we turned it on because of this.
I was going to say, between 28 apps that we have on App Source, and we do document, so that was a joke, but most people don't, so that's why I said it. Through the implementation, right? That's what I'm talking to. But we probably have 800-900 pages of documentation. It would be great to just shove those all into something and just be able to ask the questions or point them in the right spot, right? If you need more information, go to page 19, type of thing, right?
You can do that now.
You can do that now.
You can train your own model to read your documentation and put out. You could put that in there. So, see, it's a good idea, Ben.
Yeah.
I will say the internet does have the answers to all questions, but I also have learned that not all the answers are correct.
No, they aren't.
It does take a little to ensure that you don't believe everything you read, but you have to validate what you read, or you can, trust, but not trust,
everybody
but validate.
Everybody at some point in their life has, edited the information on a Wikipedia page at some point to something that's just completely untrue. I know Chris has done it because he's laughing.
I haven't done it. I've never edited a wiki page.
It's just like, one of those things that you're bored in a past life and just wanted to update somebody's Wikipedia information. I feel like everybody's been there.
Did you do that?
That's not Brad. I mean, I've done it, yeah. And then it usually gets changed back within like 24 hours. But, if somebody cites their sources, I'm not a reliable source if I don't know what I'm talking about on Wikipedia.
That's classic.
Yeah. So you can't trust everything you see, but
no, but it's we are getting there, and I see that there is a lot of room, and it's both scary and alarming because I see two uses for it. One, it will take away a lot. You can put a lot of emphasis on building this back end. It makes it a lot easier for the customers. But on the flip side, then it just comes and becomes a runaway application that everybody can implement. So it's a lot to it. So
it's iRobot, right? Will Smith movie. Yeah,
yes.
I mean, that's like where you want to stay away from, right? When they get the minds of their own and do something malicious, right? You want to stay away from that.
Well, will we get to that case? The only thing we were talking about the AI, so we have a good set of Christmas lists here. Chris, we'll have to keep a list of this, and at the end, put them all up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, because we're jumping all over the place. But the thing with the AI is we're saying you can learn from it. I think AI can feed AI. You can start off with some bad information, have somebody generate content from that bad information. Now it multiplies out over and over again. And then also, if everybody puts all their information in AI and takes all the information that gets read from this, trained model or trained network or however you phrase it, nobody will have any more thought because we'll just be pulling all the information from it. And then does that mean we just stop moving forward? Or does AI have to tell us what to do next and be able to learn, right? So you had all these scientists doing all these experiments, over the years and years. But eventually now it's just, okay, well, AI will do it all for me. I don't have to do anything.
They'll think for you.
Yes.
That's scary.
To go back to Chris, was that what you were going to say? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I did want to give Ben the opportunity to finish his Christmas list.
Oh yeah, no, that's. I think we all want good things for Business Central and for users of Business Central and for the product to continue to succeed. At the end of the day, that's what I'm looking forward to. See, and then be able to see what the year has brought, what Microsoft has brought this past year, and then what else could we do in 2024? I think AI is going to be the forefront of that next year.
For sure. Yeah. I think that's where most of the investment's going. Yeah.
I think it's where most of the investment's going. I am now with them releasing a lot of the tools to allow us to have AI development within Business Central to see what extensions to the application get built, not only from the app source point of view, but from the application point of view. How much, we talked about the predictive payment model, which was added, was it last year? Did they add it? Or the year? I forget when they added it, which version. See, this is the blur. I don't know if it was in a wave. I don't know if it was in a month. I don't know if it was yesterday or last year. But then the marketing text, and I think they'll have more and more come in and to be able to really shape the application, even from analysis. I did see some wonderful examples from other developers of what they had developed with the ability to analyze data and generate paragraph explanations of the data. based upon questions asked, and it's extremely powerful. You could pick a lot about your customers, learn a lot about your vendors, learn a lot about your products based upon information in your item ledger, for example, or your customer ledger, for predictive payments. We talked about, or item sales. You can do some neat AI generated forecasting using some models that's specific to your data.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of applications, use cases, and with the item thing as well. Probably, what are you going to be short on? What do you need to purchase? Right, like beefing up the requisition worksheets and all the anything really related to MRP. Right, I feel like that's a big gap that usually people call out. With not a gap, but just like something that's more manual than people would like it to be in Business Central. Right, so if you could automate, right, I think that's AI and automation are like the two things that's the only things people are talking about now in terms of like what do they want that's new, right? I want to automate everything and I want the computer to do everything for me, like you said.
People have been saying that since the computer was invented.
Yeah.
because I was there. But I've had people always say, "Oh, I just want to click a button."
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of times people joke and say, "Well, if you just have to click a button, then why do we need you? We can have something else. Just click the button."
Yeah.
But I think we are at the point where you bring up a good point with MRP, that if the system, quote, can analyze your data and give you suggestions based upon the patterns of your data.
Yeah, have that built into Business
Without having
Central.
to build up all the rules, let it kind of generate the rules or learn the rules based upon your habits. And then you could factor in dating. So maybe the system could predict seasonality, right? Because that's another tough thing with MRP, that a lot of times it's difficult to forecast or plan within an MRP process seasonality if you're that type of industry. But then also factor in, the weather and all these things. So you need to have some sort of model that can take all those dynamic circumstances and predictive circumstances and put them all together to come up with a nice planning thing. See, Ben, we're giving all these ideas for you over there. All I need, man, is I just need you to put, "Thank you, Brad, for the thought."
Yeah.
And I'll be happy.
Well, we don't have anything to work on, for the next year. So we'll just start on them tomorrow.
Okay.
There you go.
Well, if you need someone to consult with, you might know where to get to us.
Yeah.
I know we're not on the top list of quotes, but hopefully we're on the top list of people to consult.
Yeah. No, you're making your way up there.
Well, I'm making my way up there. How do I get on the top of this list?
Just need like a absolutely, all-star quote. I know it's coming in the next, 15 minutes or so. So I'm just waiting.
Okay. Well, we'll have to play it back. Well, see, now the pressure's on. I won't have anything.
Yeah.
I'll have, it won't be the best quote. It will be the dumbest thing said. I'll be on the top of the list, but it won't be for the most inspirational quote.
It's
It will
still
be the dumbest quote.
It's just quotes I like. So
yeah. I was on this quote with podcast with Brad. Do you believe what he said? And then it would just be, memed all over the planet over and over again, and then I'll have to retire. So that's an interesting thing. So what else have you been up to? See, now I lost my train of thought with what I originally wanted to speak with you about. We're kind of loose on this end of the week recording.
Yeah, end of week, end of year. Most people are probably starting to take off at the end of next week and just take off through the new year, feels like. So, I feel like you're just rolling with the punches, just like on this podcast, right? Tangent for about 45 minutes on AI automation and our Christmas list. I love it.
Yeah, that's what we have to do. So what else is there anything else now that you thought of you'd like for Christmas? So we have a few good things on this list that we'll have to get compiled.
Or resolution for 2024, man. I don't know.
Well, if we want to go into 2024, my next question for Ben was, what can we look forward to from you in your toolbox for 2024? Can you give us any insight and something to look forward to for your product offering?
Yeah, so with a few of our tools, we're beefing up some of the features and functions. Actually had a call this morning with a client on our project management tool. So that's, again, like you said, Brad, trying to make jobs easier in Business Central, right? So kind of building a unified, well, we've been calling it project management for a year. I just heard that Microsoft is renaming jobs projects or something like
Yes,
Yes.
they
that.
are
So
Yes,
renaming
they
it.
are.
now I have to probably rename my tool something like that. But yes, we are adding a ton of features and a ton of functionality to our project management tool, as well as our advanced CRM tool to make relationship management in Business Central much, much easier to use. So those are probably the two things I'm most excited about. A lot of the focus this year was on kind of our pre-built, built-in dashboards, our AR automation with invoice and statement delivery, and our prepayments tool, and now kind of circling back on some of the other tools to really beef them up with more, features and functions without too much setup. So
That's
more
that's
functions,
wonderful.
less setup.
That's wonderful. No, I'm looking forward to that. And now any of the AI introduced features that you add to your
Yeah.
toolbox, I'm looking forward to as well. See, I'm putting a little pressure on you there too.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, we're most excited about continuing to just grow our partner network, right? We've gotten a lot of success this year with the partners that we are working with. We're getting a lot of traction, and internally, that's what I'm most excited about, right? Just continuing to spread the word, getting more partners, and when consultants and clients get their hands on these things, they're really excited, and they're like, I can't believe I didn't know about this 6 months ago. This made my life so much easier, and that's kind of what makes us keep doing what we're doing, and gives us that feeling that we're doing something right when we get feedback like that. So that's
what
what
I
I'm most
like.
excited
I
about.
like that suite of tools like yours, and there are others out there. And again, I'm
Yeah.
one of those. I'm a realist. I tell everybody, you'll never be the only one to do everything.
Yeah,
You just have to do what you do and do it well, and
for sure.
you don't have to chase everything. But what I find in implementations, and find it more well received by customers, the dynamic of implementations has changed. For the most part, I'm not
Yeah.
saying you have edge cases for everything, but years and years ago when it first started, you had to basically do a modification for everything if somebody wanted something. Now we're fortunate enough to have the tools to where you don't have to go with if somebody wants to have, the job queue monitoring. Like, what do I do to monitor if my job queues fail, for example? Well, we could create this cool job queue app with a service outside that does all this stuff. It'll cost you 300 hours and we can get it done, and now you can monitor it. Or you can say, hey, I know this guy who has a cool tool set that you just have to enable, and for, whatever the price may be, it's installed, it's done, and we can start using it today instead of having to wait a couple weeks and have to do all this testing and go through it. So the suite of tools like you have in the toolbox, I like for that reason, that you can just the turnkey, quick solutions that you can give to a customer, so they're happier and they don't feel like they're being, having to make a modification for everything. And even from the implementation point of view, you don't have that carrying cost anymore because the application's changing so much. I'd much rather use a BC toolbox type suite or even pieces of it and let you deal with it. Me, I just kind of say, hey, use it and go from there. So I like those tools the best for that reason, among others.
Yeah. And I think that's what's resonated with most people. Like you said, it's just a lot of smaller add-ins that kind of add up to this, greater solution if you want all, 28 of them. But most people, we don't have anyone that's using every single one of our apps in their one environment, right? That's just kind of unrealistic. Most people are using, 7 or 8 maybe on the high end, and some people just buy 1 or 2 to improve those 1 or 2 areas, right? Like you said, like somebody came to us, job queue thing. Okay, boom, click, turn a button on and put your email in that you want the notification to come to, and then when the job queue fails, you click it and it opens it up, right? Something super simple, but took us a while to build, but now you license it out and kind of benefits the greater good, and nobody has to take on that consulting fee or development fee themselves. We've taken that on, and that's the whole SaaS model, right? Trying to recoup your money through volume, but giving it to everybody else for a huge discount than they'd have to do to build it themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep.
No, that's perfect. Well, Ben, we've tied you up quite a bit. We do appreciate you taking time to speak with us.
Absolutely.
And
we got a lot of ideas out of this one.
We have a lot of. My mind is like, I was just, I got paused for a moment because I'm thinking of all these cool things, or ideas. I guess cool things. That's my slang. I'm trying to, use slang these days. But to think of all the ideas and enhancements that can be made to the life cycle of the product applications and even implementations. So we do appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. We will have to get you back on again because there were several things that I wanted to speak with you about, but Chris diverted us down a road. I'll blame Chris for everything every time. He knows this. That's how it always goes. But we do appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. We know you're extremely busy, and we all don't have a lot of time on this planet, and any moment that somebody takes to spend with me, I'm appreciative of that. I know Chris is as well, because we talk about that a lot. How can somebody get in contact with you to learn more about the BC Toolbox, to learn more about you, or see if they can share any ideas with you of what they'd like for Christmas?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the easiest way to contact me is probably just through LinkedIn. So Ben Cole, common first last name. So Ben Cole ERP Connect, Ben Cole ERP Connect. You'll find me. I look just like this in my profile picture. So feel free to connect and message me. That's my favorite way to connect and start to collaborate. And then if you're just looking for more information on our toolbox, we've got videos, use cases, documentation, screenshots, all that kind of stuff on our website, bctoolbox.com. That'll take you to our product listing. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you're interested in optimizing kind of the user experience in Business Central. And if you're just looking to chat, again, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Great. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
And again, I appreciate your time, and we'll schedule something to have you back on. And if I don't speak with you before, have a wonderful holiday and a happy new year.
Sounds good. You guys as well.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you, Chris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, matalino.io. And my Twitter handle is matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.